All right, joining me now here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is Karen Lewis. Karen is the president of the Chicago Teachers Union, which you can find at ctunet.com. Karen, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so Karen, we have been covering it on the show, but if people are not familiar, just describe the current assault by Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel on public education in Chicago.
Yeah, it's really terrible. One of the things that has happened over the last year is that we have had a huge ramp up in the number of school closings, and they were done supposedly this year because of a utilization issue. But in previous years, they've always been surrounding performance. It's a failed policy. Policies of opening charters and in neighborhoods that are underserved, but the children can't go to them. I mean, it's just been bad policy after bad policy after bad policy, and there's been also a push to move poor black people out of the city of Chicago. Now, the mayor didn't have anything to do with that. That certainly predates him. However, the current mayor has decided that he is going to close 54 schools, which is a huge number of schools. It is a massive undertaking, and the Board of Education has never been able to successfully close 7 or 8 schools in a time. But to ramp this up to 54 when it's almost as if the mayor has no real knowledge of Chicago, primarily because he's not really from here. And neither are the people that he surrounds himself with. So not understanding the neighborhoods, not having an honest conversation about the safety of our children, and not even going to save the amount of money that he claims. But again, the real problem here is a problem of mayoral control, and that he is absolutely unaccountable to anyone except himself. And I mean, it's just a situation that frightens me, to be perfectly honest. And I just cannot tell you. I mean, I literally could not sleep last night. I have been thinking about this, and it has actually consumed my days. And when I go to the schools and speak with the people, and mostly parents who will be affected by this, they are absolutely horrified by what appears to be a complete lack of empathy for their lives. I mean, and in some cases, we've had children that have moved 3, 4, and 5 times because they've closed down schools. And I mean, it's just, it's a bad policy. It doesn't work, and it will not save money. But mostly it will not provide the better education they claim that it will.
And this is something that's going to be affecting, again, 54 schools, 50,000 children will be affected. Some of them will be placed in, frankly, because of the school closings, they will be placed in dangerous situations where actually getting to their new schools will be dangerous. Discuss that a bit.
Yes. But not only that, if you look at it, it's over 100 schools that are affected because once those schools close down, they're going somewhere else. Those kids have to go somewhere else. So there's a problem there, too.
Yeah. Let's discuss a little bit the CEO of Chicago Public Schools, Barbara ByrdBennett. Specifically, let's talk a little bit about the time she spent in Detroit, which I think kind of gives a bit of foreshadowing of what both she and Rahm Emanuel want to do in Chicago. So let's discuss Bennett's track record in Detroit.
Well, I mean, if you look at what she's done in the past in terms of what has happened on her watch, there have been massive school closings in Detroit. I mean, I don't really know what the specifics are, so I just know what I see as the result. So I don't know. I just don't even know what to say. It's just when you look at Detroit and you see what's happened there, it's devastating to a city. And what my big concern is not the specifics of people who are involved in it. It's what are the policies? These are nationwide policies. They're going from district to district with this. This is all Broad work and Gates work and Walton work. So, I don't really think it's that important because the players are interchangeable. It's the policy that is more problematic for us.
It's got to be. I mean, I can't. Begin to understand. I can just sympathize with this, but it just seems it's unbelievable when you see how much the deck is stacked against people just in the general life with all types of budget cuts and austerity. But the fact that you have Rahm Emanuel and his entire board that he appointed to the Chicago Public Schools, they don't seem to want to listen at all. They don't seem to want to have teachers at the table at all. They make these closures without any, without input from students, without input from parents, without input from teachers. It really is, and the way they just blatantly kind of brush aside concerns, to me, is the most telling and frustrating at the same time.
It is, and not only is it frustrating, it's at the point where it is clear that there has to be another agenda at work, and I have to believe on some level that people do care about children and want the best for them. I just happen to think these people are extraordinarily misguided, and that the people that are making decisions are not really people that have an education background, even though we have 2 board members who were former principals. I don't know that they're getting the appropriate information that they are, and I think I've heard this from board members in the past when they've spoken to people that they probably should not have spoken to, who have felt as if they weren't getting reasonable information. The other problem is we have had a revolving door, a huge churn of leadership in this city. So, in the past 3 years, there have been 4 CEOs, and that is problematic because every time somebody new comes in, there's something else they want to come and do. And at this moment, there are so many things going on at once that it feels that the whole point is what Eli Broad caused, this disruption and create the chaos so you can basically blow up the system. And it certainly feels as if that's what these people are doing. And yet, the results are an amplification of the status quo, which is one type of education for poor children and another education for the children of the elite. And I think that's where I have such a hard issue with what's going on, because all I ever hear are talking points. I hear talking points. I've been pouring through the facilities plan, and yet I do not see any kind of real vision about what this district should look like and what it should be doing, and how do you empower and engage neighborhoods? Because we're going to be looking at neighborhoods that have school deserts in them, let alone food deserts. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating.
No, I hear you. And again, I have to say, and again, I'm talking to Karen Lewis. Karen is the president of the Chicago Teachers Union. You can find them at ctunet.com. I've had my friend that I've known. I used to live in Chicago. I now live in Boston. I had Kenzo Shibata, who's part of your team there. Mm-hmm. And I have friends in Chicago, and I have friends who have children in Chicago. I know teachers in Chicago who work in the system, and this affects my friends. It affects family for me. And when I watch this fight, I have to say, and I am very, very happy to see what Chicago Teachers Union is doing. You guys are actually having a 3-day march coming up this Saturday. It'll be Saturday the 18th, Sunday the 19th, and Monday the 20th. A 3-day march in the city of Chicago for educational justice. Describe the idea of doing a 3-day march and what exactly you guys are fighting for, because the whole idea of not just having one march, but having it actually go for more than one day and actually, span the entire city is pretty great. So tell us about that.
Well, our original plan was to have a long march like they used to have in the old days of Selma, Birmingham. Just this notion of moving slowly through the city by the communities that are going to be harmed by this massive destruction of public education, and to draw attention to the neighborhoods, because these are the neighborhoods in Chicago that are unseen and hidden from most people. I mean, I know people that come to visit and they talk about how beautiful our city is and how wonderful it is, and that's right on certain parts of it, but there are other parts that are really quite hidden, and the destruction that has gone on in those communities unknown. So this particular march, which was modeled on an old-style civil rights march, because in order to change people's hearts and minds, we've had discussions with them, we've talked to them, we've done all these other things of the being reasonable part, and they continue to be massively unjust. So this particular form of march, which will encompass the south side and the west side, and also the north side, because there are schools that are there too. It is very old school, very old style, with people who are actually the ones that will be the most affected by these policies.
And you've discussed about the idea when these schools are actually closed, the idea of actually perhaps even having the students try to go to the shut down schools. I mean, hopefully, and it's May now. You can cross your fingers and say, hopefully, it doesn't come to that. Hopefully, the Emanuel administration comes to its senses. But I know, I'm sorry. We know that's ridiculous.
I mean, hopefully, Rahm Emanuel gets on the right medication to help.
Yeah. I'm a comedian,
right.
So it was a joke.
What we have said is that we will take direct action. We will do whatever it takes to draw attention, not only draw attention, but to have some discussion with the people. We have had many meetings in the communities where people have not only voiced their frustration, but have shown where the data that the Board of Education are actually using are incorrect. So I don't know what it is. I mean, people say they're data-driven. I mean, so you're either data-driven or you're not. You're only data-driven when you're looking to destroy children's lives and the lives of the people who work with them. But when it comes to looking at the reality of A, how much money you're going to save, and B, whether or not these are wise decisions. I mean, we live in a city full of Capulets and Montagues, and if we don't have real conversations about that and talk about what safety looks like, I mean, I remember Darian Albert really well, and when Darian Albert's mother gets on television and on Fox and begs people not to do this, so it will not happen to their children what happened to her son. And to ignore that completely and act as if it's not a reality is problematic. That's number one. But number two, and more importantly, is that these children are actually younger. And this is what keeps me up at night, is young children in harm's way.